is a creepy, unexplained childhood experience that you have?
Oh my goodness, I'm full of them. I fucking love this side of TikTok. So let me just start off by saying that my mom is literally a magnet for paranormal experiences. But to this day, this is the one that fucks me up the most. So when I was 2 years old, I was living in an old historical home, but you guys already knew that because that's the basis of every fucking scary story. Since I was so young, my mom had a baby monitor in my room, and she noticed that I was singing this old folk song on a loop over and over and over. So she thought, oh, that's super endearing. It must be the nanny who taught her. She asked the nanny said no. Well, it was probably her father. He's really into music. She asked my dad. My dad said no. So being super freaked out and very confused, she walks into my room as I'm singing this song one day and she asks, who taught you to sing such a pretty song? And I kid you not, I said, the lady in the corner over there taught me that song. The one with the boo-boo in her tummy. This is fucking terrifying. I got plenty more where that came from.
Let's get this money. It's just money coming to me easily. Money coming in and needing me. Money coming in repeatedly. Money coming, it's just money coming. It's just money coming to me frequently. Money coming in to be with me. Money coming in secretly. Money coming, it's just money coming. Money coming to me immediately. Money coming in.
You had?
It's my motherfucking time to shine. Okay. So, I finally get to tell somebody about the tiny door in my closet while growing up. So, to this day, I can't explain logically, in any sort of rational explanation, what happened to me, why it happened to me, and what exactly this thing was. Like, I've got no idea. And if somebody on like witch talk or supernatural TikTok or conspiracy TikTok or, you know, like all of the talks has any sort of explanation, please like follow this series and help me figure out what it is, because this, I don't know. I have no rational explanation to it. But stay tuned for the story of the tiny door.
That you have?
I used to live in New Mexico in a small town with a bunch of rivers around us, and I just got dropped off at my daycare with a bunch of other kids. There's like 20 of us in the group. We were all going by the river so we can go hang out, and it was shallow enough for all of us to chill, you know, up to our knees. We were like 4 or 5 at the time. So we went to the specific spot where everybody can have a good time and like enjoy the water. But there's always that group of son of a bitch kids, you know. There was 3 of us at the time. There's me and these 2 other kids. Went and climbed these trees. We said, fuck those kids, we're gonna go climb these other trees a little bit down the river. But what we did not know is that the river was a lot deeper over there, and we were tiny and we couldn't swim. So we're hanging on the tree, you know, and it breaks when we fall in the water. Everybody's like trying to get us out. We're basically fucking sinking, but we feel somebody push us up. All 3 of us feel somebody push us up to where we can get our hand above the water. So they pull us out, everybody yells at us. We're like, We get home and we look on the ofrenda and we see the guy that helped us up that was in the water so we can breathe, you know? Turns out it was our daycare lady's older brother that was supposed to be there on that specific day, but he died a week prior, bro. Still trust.
Check this. I am 11 years old at the time, and I am babysitting my little cousin. He's 3. And he would always be at my house, so it was nothing new. He would sleep in our chair in the living room because he liked to fall asleep watching TV in that chair. So me and my friends are in my bedroom, which is right next to the living room, and out of nowhere, he starts screaming, crying, "Ah, Dominique!" I run in there. I'm like, "Yo, what's wrong? What's wrong, Jamal?" He says, "I'm scared." I said, "What are you scared of?" He said, "I'm scared of that man right there." And he points behind me. I said, "What man?" He said, "Right there." I looked behind me. I said, "Behind me?" He said, "Yeah, he's right there." Me and all my friends was stiff and scared. We was like, "Come on, come in here with us." We ran in the room, we shut the door, and that was it.
You had?
Okay, I'm Native, but I am also Hispanic. So my baby cousin at the time had gotten really sick, and nobody knew what was wrong with him. Like, he went to the doctor was like, "I don't know what's wrong with him." He had a really high fever, and he just wasn't getting better for a long period of time. So in Hispanic culture, we have a thing called ojo, and basically it's kind of like a curse on a child usually. So they thought that my cousin had ojo, so He was in his crib and they had covered him in smashed bananas and wrapped him up to help with the fever. And then I don't even remember who did it, but they got an egg and they rubbed it all over his body, and then they cracked the egg under his crib. And basically we're told the inside, the darker it is, the more evil it. So this egg came out and it was black. I thought I had remembered this wrong for a while, but then I saw La Llorona, and yeah.
What is a creepy, unexplained childhood experience that you had?
I'm pretty sure I saw a flesh pedestrian when I was like 10, around that age. So just for reference, I'm from Chandler, Arizona. My parents still live in the same house where this like took place. And our neighborhood, it's like our neighborhood, a highway, and then Indian reservation. And I don't know if flesh pedestrians are common throughout all native tribes or if it's just Navajo. This reservation isn't Navajo reservation, that's why I say that. But anyway, my neighbors and I were outside. It was nighttime, and we used to go outside and just play all the time. We'd like skateboard and just like hang out. And we were sitting like outside my house, and we looked down the street. There was this like light pole, and just past the light, we saw this figure crossing the street, and it was not an animal, and it was not a person. Let me reenact it. It was like this almost, like it was like a silhouette, but it was like really long arms and it was walking. I don't know what the fuck it was, but it was really scary.
Cui cui. So I'm a military brat who grew up in Vicenza, Italy, so we went to go visit the Vatican, as you do when you live overseas. So we entered this part after walking around, and there's like this big old ofrenda, like a huge altar with nothing but velas just lit up. And I noticed this lady all dressed in black with a veil over her face, and she's kneeling down praying. But I get like a funky feeling. And my mom's looking around at everything, and she's like, I can't believe there's nobody here. And I'm like, there's a lady over there, and she's praying. So my mom looks and she's like, mijo, there's nobody over there. So she kind of writes me off, but I still see her. So I tell my dad, and my dad's like, mijo, there's nothing there, just, you know, whatever. So naturally, I'm like, oh shit, it's La Llorona. I keep staring at her, and like suddenly she just kind of turns around and she takes her veil off. She had a normal face, but she takes her veil off and she just goes, shh, and smiles. Well, naturally, that freaks the shit out of me. So I start yelling, and I'm telling my parents, and when we look, like she just disappeared. She was gone. Shit freaked me out.
You had.
When I was about 5 years old, I used to go to Alabang Town Square every single weekend. And on the third floor was Time Zone. Only the OGs know this, but there used to be a playhouse that had a slide, ball pit, and net bridge. And for some reason, I never took the slide. So my mom asked me why. And I said, because there's a little girl. And when my mom looked, it was completely empty. I was the only kid in the playhouse. So my mom freaked out and told the manager. And he replied, ay, oo, may ghost talaga dyan. As a child, I didn't understand the concept of ghost, so I thought it was a real life kid. And I even became friends with her because she was so nice. And up to this day, I can vaguely remember her face.
When I started to talk as a baby, I would point to a corner of my room and go, over da, and my parents had no idea what over da meant. It lasted a few years until I was around 5 or 6, and then it faded out, and my little sister was born. Everything was fine, no mention of the over da, until she started to babble and talk, and also pointed in her room going, over da, over da. Parents were a wee bit freaked out. We had no idea what the over da was. They asked me if I'd told her about it. I hadn't. She would literally cry herself to sleep going, over da! Everything was all good until it faded out when she was about 5 or 6, and then my brother was born. He never actually said it until we decided to sell the house. One day I'm playing Legos with my little brother, and I hear him go, Mona? And I was like, sorry, what did you just say? And he was like, oh, nothing. But later on that day, I was talking to him, and he was staring like this, kind of behind me, and I'm like, what are you looking at? And he's like, the man. And I'm like, Dad? And he's like, no, the other man. There was nothing behind me, but he just kept staring like this, like he was following something.
So growing up, we had family that lived in this house. It was a big ass house. Every time I visited, I felt uncomfortable, especially in the basement and upstairs. Now, one day my aunt was telling my mom that they had been having some experience, like someone touching them, or they just feel like they're being watched. And you know, I'm white as hell, so I feel like I gotta fucking investigate. So I walked upstairs, I'm walking around. This one room in the middle of the fucking upstairs had no windows and just had a bunch of them porcelain dolls that just fucking stare at you. Right? So, but you know, I'm cocky. I'm walking around. I'm like, yeah, this shit ain't real. I'm trying to talk to this fucking ghost, trying to lure it out like a fucking idiot, you know, white. Anyway, I get to the last room right by the stairs, and I feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Something ain't right. I turned around, scared as shit. I reached my hand out. My fucking hand went numb, up to my elbow, like tingling. Boy, when I tell you I ran down them stairs so fucking fast.
I don't know if this is the direction that I'm supposed to go with this, but I've also been left out of a lot of the details of what actually happened, so I do apologize. I also only have 6 seconds, so I gotta go fast. In first grade, a girl in my class had asked me to come over to her house and hang out, and I remember saying no because I didn't want to hang out with her. But apparently her uncle was not very fond of the fact that I declined their invitation. And he at that point decided to start stalking me. Again, I have been left out of a lot of details with this. I was told that he would call the school and like try and find out if I was there and just double check that I didn't leave early and stuff. And then the police caught him and they found a note in his pocket that was very graphically detailed of everything that he was going to do to me. And he went to jail. Don't know anything about it since, but I was reminiscing about that to my mother kind of ish recently. And she tells me, yeah, and it was just the strangest thing because you would go over there all the time to hang out. I have no recollection of ever doing that. And a decade of therapy hasn't really revealed anything, so like...
Experience that you had.
When I was younger, my parents bought really cheap land that was supposedly cursed, according to the construction workers who are also the locals in that area. And this was in the Philippines, and it's very superstitious there. So one day I was throwing a class 8 tantrum because I wanted to go home. I was bored. The construction workers told my mom to get me to shut up or leave because the spirits of the land didn't like that I was crying. So that night I was throwing up blood, buckets of blood. For 2 weeks, I was hospitalized in a small rural hospital in the Philippines. And after 2 weeks, my parents gave up and was like, I'm gonna call the shaman or the witch doctor to come. And the witch doctor asked the doctors to take the blood and check the type of the blood, and it wasn't even my blood type. True story, for real.
You had.
Yeah, so this happened around the time when I was 5, and up until then I'd been living on the island of Puerto Rico with my aunt. Around that time I'd been having a lot of strange dreams where I would just run around a house chasing a little kid. Later on in my dreams I found out this little kid's name is Raymond. So a little after I started having these strange dreams, my aunt, she comes to me and she says, are you ready to meet your brother this summer? Because like at that time I hadn't met my brothers, I hadn't even seen my mom, like I had no memories of her. So I asked my aunt, I'm like, is my little brother's name Raymond? And like her face is like in complete shock. Because like she's never mentioned him before, you know? So we have a long discussion about how I know his name is Raymond and, you know, how I saw him in my dreams. Later on that summer, he comes to visit. He looks exactly like how he did in my dreams. So we start playing, hanging out, and I get curious and I ask him, do you ever see me in your dreams?
You had. That is...
Oh, I'll win this one. There was this kid me and my brother used to play with. He lived across the street from us. His name was Jake. Unfortunately, Jake went to the beach one time with his family, got pulled in by a rip current, and drowned. Very, very sad. My mom was a night kitchen manager, so she never really saw who me and my brother played with. Like, she would go to work at night and sleep through the day. This was about 2 months after Jake passed. My mom was heading out to work. She came back inside and she says, hey, there's some little boy across the street asking me, can y'all play? Go out there and tell him that it's too late. Y'all play with him tomorrow. Jake was an only kid. And she said right across the street. He was right across the street from us. That's where he used to live when he was alive. Me and my brother looked at each other, frozen, stunned, scared. And I say, boy across the street. And she was like, yes, go out there and tell him that it's too late for y'all to play. Follow my mom outside. There was no kid across the street. My mom goes, oh, he must have just went inside. To this day, me and my brother are spooked as hell about this shit.
You had.
Okay, I by far win this one. So when I was a little baby, like still being able to be cradled in your arms, like couldn't talk at all, I had a dream that I've remembered my entire life where I was sitting in my crib, I was laying down, and then all of a sudden my room just went completely red, like as if I had red LED lights on, and then I started hearing like stomping outside, like as if a marching band was like stomping, as well as like marching band music, and then I see a clown come up to my crib and he like peeks over and just like stares at me, doesn't do anything except stare at me. And I've just remembered that my entire life. So then one night when I was like 14, I was talking to my dad and my sister about dreams, and I told them about this dream, and my sister was like, what the hell? I've had that same exact dream and I've remembered it ever since I was a little baby. The weirder part is that she was born 3 years before me. So you're telling me we had the same exact dream 3 years apart, have remembered it our whole life, and no explanation. I don't know. Tell me.
When I was really young, a family friend was playing Ouija board. She ended up asking it how she was going to die. It said 26 and then spelled out murder. She actually ended up murdering her nephew when she was 26. Do not fuck with that game.
What is a creepy, unexplained...
Is y'all ready? So I was young and a lot of experiences used to happen at this house or these apartments. And I had to be like 10 at the time. And at the time, me and my little sister shared a room, and we had slept on bunk beds. And I'm laying on a bunk bed with my head facing the door. So the door is like where this door is. Imagine my bed right there where the closet is. Mind you, it's a bunk bed, and I'm on the top bunk. And it didn't feel weird or nothing. It didn't feel weird. But all of a sudden, the door opens, like twists opens, like opens. And I'm looking at it, and I thought I seen something blue walk to the bottom bunk. Now I have a baby brother. At the time, he had to be like, I don't even know, he was young, like a baby. And he always wore like this little blue sleeper, so I assumed that it was him. But it walks back out the door and closed the door. So I'm like, okay, but why they walking here and not say nothing? So I go back to normal, just laying down, back in the bed on my phone. Next thing you know, the door opens again, but this time it just opens and then closes. And at this point, I'm scared because I can hear them in there playing, my little sister and my little brother.
So it was 1981, and I was a youngster attending a Catholic elementary school. One day in class, I was weepy, and my teacher and some of the classmates around her asked me what was wrong. And I explained that I was really sad because John Pope Paul II had been shot. And the teacher was like, no, he wasn't. He's fine. And when I stood my ground and argued against her, she sent me to the principal's office. The principal then called my parents and had them come and pick me up. They were pissed. And I had to stay home for 2 days too, which is crazy when you're like that young. Anyway, the next day, John Pope Paul II was shot. And that was just the beginning of many premonitions and predictions that I've had in my life, which I don't understand. So if anybody can shed some light on this, I would love to know what that is, because I have no idea.
If you already follow me on TikTok, then you know that my mom is a ghost whisperer, so I always have some crazy ass ghost encounters growing up as a kid. But here's one of the stories. I woke up around 3 a.m. because I really had to go use the bathroom. I heard my mom having a conversation with another fucking person. I walked into the living room. It was a woman dressed in gray. This woman did not look well. My mom had her eyes in the back of her fucking head. This woman in gray started walking towards me and started to smile, and it fucking disappeared. My mom came back to her senses, looked at me and said, baby, I told you to never wake up past 2 a.m. That's when ghosts thrive. Bruh. And then, this deserves a part 2, bro. So like and follow. If y'all want some crazy ass stories, I got y'all.
Childhood experience that you had.
Before my mom and dad got divorced when I was 8, we lived here. When I was 6 years old, my mom had a dog named Suka, a Siberian Husky, and woke up out of a dead sleep one night, and Suka was standing in my doorway staring at me. And I called her to me, and she started walking towards me very slow, and it scared me. So I stood up on my bed up against the wall, and I called her name again, and she looked at me and said, if you scream, I will kill you. So, of course, I screamed, and as this thing's lunging on my bed, my dad runs in, flips on the light, and this thing disappears. And a few seconds later, right behind him walks in Suka and sits down. And I have no way to explain it. And a lot of other things happened in that house too, besides that.
You had.
When I was a kid, my family and I lived in a house in Texas. It was a 2-story house, and my parents were putting my little sister to sleep in her crib. Then they went on downstairs, and I continued to play with my toys at the top of the staircase. For some random reason, I decided to look at the bottom of the staircase, and I saw my sister crawling around on the ground. So I thought to myself, I wonder how she got down there. Then I remembered, parents had just put her in the crib about 5 minutes ago. So while I stare at her, I realize that she's a little pale and she has huge black eyes, but otherwise she looks just like my sister. So naturally, I start screaming and my parents come running. I'm hysterical and my parents are asking me what's wrong. I point and I say, look, there's Snaha. She's at the bottom of the staircase. She was gone. Around my 18th birthday, my family and I took a trip to India. We were visiting my grandma, and one night she decided to oil and braid my hair and my sister's hair. So as my grandma was braiding my sister's hair, she looked over at my mom, and she said, Ritu, Snaha's twin would have been a girl. I look at my mom and I say, what twin? And my mom looks at me and says, Swasti, I never told you this, but I miscarried Snaha's twin.
That you had.
So this one night, me, my friend Joe, and Brian all went to our friend Cole's house. And for some reason, the best movie we could think of watching was The Conjuring. So like midway through the movie, Brian said he had to go home, but we just thought he was scared, so he left. So about an hour after the movie was over, we decided, since the family was being possessed in the basement in the movie, that we shouldn't stay in the basement for the rest of the night. So we started heading upstairs, and I was like in the middle, so if anything popped off, I wouldn't be the first one getting grabbed. Then we made it to the kitchen, and we came up with a plan that Cole would go upstairs first. Then Cole was upstairs, and he wasn't responding when we called him. So me and Joe were just sitting in the kitchen, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I was crying. Joe's lips were chapped. So like after 8 minutes of crying, we decided that Cole might be playing with us. So we head upstairs and we went to Cole's room. And to our surprise, we saw Brian clapping Cole.
I only have 30 seconds, so I may be talking fast, but my mom seems to believe that I was almost abducted by a witch and that a witch left her mark on me. When I was like a week old, my mom says that she heard a woman singing in my room, and when she went to go check on me, there was a black figure hovering over me and the window was cracked. My mom says that she couldn't get into the door, like past the door for some reason. She just could not get to me, so she started cussing out this black figure, and finally the black figure went out the window and mom shut it, and then she got me. My grandma came and my aunts came and they prayed over me, and then I was also baptized like the next day because I don't know, they just thought that would help. And I didn't know about this until I was 18 because I had asked my mom about my birthmark. Well, I thought it was a birthmark, but it turns out it's like a bite mark from the witch.